Chosen one. You've been wondering what's happening to you. Nothing excites you anymore. The things that once brought joy now feel empty. And deep inside, a fear whispers, "Is something wrong with me?" But what if this emptiness is not darkness? What if it's the first sign that God is transforming you? The silent shift. Inside a chosen one. Chosen one. There comes a moment in your journey when the world suddenly loses its color, and you can't explain why. The conversations that once made you feel alive now echo with emptiness. The hobbies that used to light you up now barely flicker inside you. Even the small comforts that once warmed your heart feel strangely distant, as if they no longer belong to this version of you. And before you understand what's happening, a quiet fear begins to rise. A fear that whispers, "Why don't I feel like myself anymore?" But listen closely, because you are not breaking down. You are being rebuilt from the inside out. What feels like the disappearance of joy is actually the removal of everything that was never meant to carry your spirit in the first place. God is stripping away the artificial so you can finally recognize the authentic. He is unplugging you from temporary emotional stimulants, not to punish you, but to awaken you to the deeper joy that only comes from Him. This numbness you feel is not a collapse. It is a reset, a holy interruption, a divine recalibration of your inner world. Heaven is rearranging you quietly, deliberately, preparing you for a level of spiritual maturity most people never reach, because very few survive this stage without misunderstanding it. You are stepping into a sacred transition where your spirit is shedding layers it no longer needs, and the emptiness you feel is simply the space being cleared for something far greater. And before we continue, if this message is already touching something deep inside you, take a second to like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet, and comment 99 below. In the spiritual realm, 99 represents the moment just before completion, your confirmation to heaven that you are ready for what comes next. When earthly joy fades, divine purpose begins. When nothing makes you happy anymore, the first reaction of your mind is panic. You tell yourself, "Something is wrong with me. I'm losing myself. I must be broken." You start comparing who you are now with who you used to be. You remember the version of you that laughed more easily, that got excited about small plans, that felt alive just by having somewhere to go or something to do. Now suddenly that version feels distant, almost like a stranger. But here's the part almost no one tells you. This feeling is not a malfunction. It's a signal. It's not evidence that your soul is shutting down. It's proof that your spirit is waking up. You are outgrowing environments, connections, and activities that were only meant to hold you for a season, not for a lifetime. What once sustained you emotionally can no longer sustain who you are spiritually becoming. So God begins a quiet separation. You find yourself sitting in places that used to thrill you, and instead of feeling fire, you feel a strange neutrality, a holy indifference. Things that once fascinated you now feel small. Places that once drained hours of your time now feel empty within minutes. The same jokes, the same crowd, the same routine, but a completely different you. This is not you becoming numb. This is you becoming intolerant to what no longer aligns with your destiny. Your spirit is developing a new standard. Old motivations don't fit your new identity anymore. The desire to impress people starts to fade. The urge to chase validation weakens. The need to constantly prove yourself to others no longer feels worth the energy. Deep inside, something in you is whispering, there has to be more than this. That whisper is heaven. That quiet unrest is God calling you out of shallow waters and into depths you never knew existed. This is the stage where your soul stops reacting to superficial stimulation and begins craving what it was truly designed for: truth, depth, purpose, alignment. You notice that gossip exhausts you. Meaningless drama irritates you. Endless scrolling leaves you feeling spiritually sick. Moments of silence, which once felt uncomfortable, now feel strangely necessary. You start to prefer honesty over entertainment, solitude over noise, authenticity over approval. It's not that life became boring. It's that surface-level living became too small for the magnitude of what God placed inside you. He is detoxing your joy, detoxing your focus, detoxing your appetite. You are not losing joy. You're losing the counterfeits of joy. And yes, that loss hurts. Counterfeits can feel very real when you don't know they're fake. That's why this phase feels like grief. You're grieving versions of yourself, ways of living, and emotional crutches that once made you feel safe. But if you could see what heaven sees, you would understand that God is not taking joy away from you. He is protecting you from building your future on emotions that were never stable to begin with. He is making sure your next season is not controlled by what entertains you, but by what transforms you. And here is where it gets even more intense, chosen one. This inner shift you're feeling right now is only the first layer. Because while your earthly joys are fading, something far greater is quietly being activated inside you. And in a moment, we're going to go deeper into what God is secretly unlocking in you through this strange emptiness you can't explain. God removes the illusions before He reveals the real. Chosen one, there comes a moment in your spiritual evolution where God begins pulling back every illusion you once mistook for joy. And it doesn't happen loudly. It doesn't happen with warning. It comes softly, silently, almost like the dimming of lights in a room you didn't realize you were sitting in. Much of the happiness you once felt wasn't true joy. It was emotional relief. It was the temporary satisfaction that comes from filling internal gaps with external distractions. You thought you were enjoying life, but in reality, you were soothing wounds. You thought certain people made you feel whole, but they were simply easing your loneliness. You thought certain habits sparked excitement, but they were just numbing your emptiness for a moment. As you mature spiritually, God begins to expose these substitutes. Suddenly, empty entertainment doesn't hold your attention. Shallow connections drain you instead of energizing you. Emotional highs feel suspicious, fleeting, unstable. Activities that once fed your senses now feel hollow, almost childish, because they never had the power to feed your soul. And when these illusions fade, the transition can feel brutal. It feels like God Himself has turned off the lights inside you, like something sacred went missing, like your internal world is shutting down. But spiritually, something very different is happening. God is not turning off your lights. He is turning on your discernment. He is stripping away the noise so you can finally hear your spirit. He is removing emotional crutches so you can stand in truth. He is exposing every imitation of peace so you can recognize the real thing when it comes. At first, this purification feels like loss. You wonder why the music doesn't move you anymore. You wonder why the conversations that once made you laugh now feel meaningless. You wonder why you sit in rooms that used to fill you with excitement and instead feel strangely disconnected, almost misplaced. But here is the hidden truth. The supernatural is beginning to whisper to you in ways the natural world can no longer compete with. God is detoxing your emotional palate so you can finally taste what is authentic. He is removing addictive patterns that kept your spirit asleep. He is dismantling attachments that were never meant to follow you into your destiny. You see, illusions are comfortable. Illusions are familiar. Illusions don't challenge you to grow. But illusions also don't carry truth. And God refuses to let His chosen walk blindly through a world built on false senses of security. So He gently removes the masks from people you once trusted. He reveals the emptiness behind activities you once glorified. He dismantles dreams that were built from wounds instead of wisdom. And though it feels like everything is falling apart, what's really happening is that everything false is falling away. This stage is not punishment, it is purification. It's a divine cleansing of your inner world, a stripping of all the clutter that kept you spiritually nearsighted. When God removes illusions, it's because He is preparing to reveal something real, something stable, something eternal. He is preparing you for a joy that doesn't evaporate when your circumstances shift. A peace that doesn't depend on someone else's behavior. A purpose that doesn't break under pressure. And just when you think He has taken too much, just when you wonder if anything meaningful will remain, that is when the real begins to emerge. Because in a moment, chosen one, we're about to step into the next layer of this mystery. The sacred place God leads you once all illusions dissolve, and the journey becomes far more intense than anything you felt so far. The wilderness season. When God recalibrates your soul. Chosen one, every person marked by heaven eventually walks into a place that cannot be seen on a map. It is not a forest, not a mountain, not a desert you can touch with your hands. And yet it feels more real than anything you have ever crossed. This is the wilderness of the soul, an inner landscape where the noise of the world fades, familiar comforts disappear, and the old sources of satisfaction suddenly fall silent. At first, it feels like loss. You look around your life and nothing tastes the same. Your interests flatten. Your energy changes. The places that once made you feel alive now feel strangely foreign. It's as if God gently lifted you out of your old world and placed you in a space where nothing external can speak to you the way it used to. And that's the point. The wilderness is not God isolating you. It is God recalibrating you. In this divine silence, He begins breaking every unhealthy dependency you didn't even know you were carrying. He breaks your dependence on excitement, those adrenaline spikes you used to chase just to feel something. He breaks your dependence on emotions, the need to constantly feel inspired, fired up, moved. He breaks your dependence on spiritual sensations, those moments when you equated goosebumps with God, forgetting that His presence goes far deeper than feelings. He breaks your dependence on people, their approval, their validation, their energy. In this wilderness, God strips all of that away, not to weaken you, but to strengthen the places inside you that were built on fragile foundations. When the emotional scaffolding is removed, your spirit is forced to stand on truth rather than thrill. You begin learning to walk by faith, not by emotional reaction, not by mood, not by inner highs or outer stimuli. You start discovering that God's presence is not loud, not dramatic, not always wrapped in intensity. Sometimes His presence comes as a quiet weight, a stable knowing, a steady calm that does not rise or fall with your circumstances. You start realizing that God's constancy does not depend on your feelings, and neither should your faith. The wilderness becomes your training ground, a place where false identities are stripped away and your true identity is revealed. A place where your soul is detoxed from emotional noise and tuned to spiritual clarity. A place where the shallow version of you dies and the unshakable version is born. This is where stability is forged, not the kind that depends on perfect days, but the kind that stands firm in storms. This is where identity is strengthened, not the identity built on what you do, but the identity rooted in who you are in God. This is where spiritual foundations become unbreakable, because they are built directly by the hand of the one who called you. And even though the wilderness feels like isolation, it is in fact the place where heaven draws closest. When you have nothing left to lean on, you finally learn to lean on Him. When the voices around you fall silent, you finally recognize His whisper. When the familiar fades, you finally see what was invisible all along. But here is the mystery that keeps most chosen ones awake at night. The wilderness doesn't just change your environment, it changes your appetite. Things you once craved no longer tempt you. Things you once tolerated now disturb your spirit. Things you once ran toward now feel like chains. And if you think this shift is intense, wait until you see what begins to awaken inside you once the wilderness has done its holy work. Because the moment your soul stops depending on the world, heaven begins revealing what you were truly designed to carry next. You're not growing cold, you're growing deep. Chosen one. One of the greatest misunderstandings in your spiritual journey is believing that emotional silence equals spiritual decline. You start to notice that the fire you once felt doesn't burn the same way. The intense waves of emotion that once washed over you during prayer, worship, or simple moments of reflection are no longer there. And the enemy tries to whisper, "You're getting cold. You're losing your connection. You're not who you used to be." But hear this with every part of your spirit. You are not growing cold. You are growing deep. This phase that feels like dryness is not God pulling away from you. It is God pulling you deeper into Him. Dryness is not distance, it is development. It is the shift from spiritual childhood into spiritual adulthood, where God is no longer feeding you with emotional milk, but strengthening you with spiritual substance. He is balancing your emotions so that you are no longer tossed around by highs and lows, like a boat caught in unpredictable waves. He is teaching you to stand anchored, steady, grounded, even when your feelings go silent. You see, when you were new in the faith, God often spoke to you through emotions. Tears, shivers, excitement, overwhelming warmth. These were His way of confirming, "I'm here with you." But as you grow, God begins to trust you with a deeper truth. His presence does not depend on sensations. His guidance does not depend on goosebumps. His nearness does not depend on intensity. And so, the emotions quiet down, not because you are losing sensitivity, but because you are gaining maturity. You are being upgraded from emotional awareness to spiritual awareness. Your joy is shifting from moments to meaning, from external sparks to internal certainty, from short-lived reactions to long-lasting revelation. You begin to understand that real joy is not the rush you feel when something exciting happens. It's the unshakable peace that sits inside you, even when nothing exciting is happening at all. You notice yourself changing in ways that feel subtle but powerful. You stop chasing noise and begin recognizing value in stillness. You stop being impressed by chaos and start craving clarity. You stop seeking emotional fireworks and start seeking divine alignment. What used to overwhelm you now barely moves you. What used to tempt you now feels beneath you. What used to distract you now feels irrelevant. This is not numbness. This is evolution. This is your spirit learning to breathe without needing a storm or a spotlight. This neutrality, the quiet, balanced center you're stepping into, is not emptiness. It is the soil where true joy will grow, because neutrality is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of stability. And stability is what God builds right before He elevates someone into their next spiritual dimension. You are not losing your fire. You are learning how to carry it without letting it burn you from the inside. You are not losing your passion. You are learning how to aim it with precision instead of letting it scatter in every direction. You are not losing your connection to God. You are discovering the version of His presence that does not depend on feeling anything at all. And here is the twist that most chosen ones don't see coming. This inner quietness is not the end of your transformation. It is the calm before something inside you ignites in a way that will change everything. Because after this sacred neutrality finishes its work, heaven begins planting a joy, a strength, a clarity so powerful that nothing in your old life could have prepared you for it. After the silence comes a new kind of joy. Chosen one. When this phase of stillness and internal recalibration finally reaches its completion, something extraordinary begins to rise inside you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but with a depth and purity you've never experienced before. It is subtle at first, almost like a soft glow beneath your ribs, a sense of clarity that appears without explanation, a peace that enters without knocking. And before you even realize what's happening, you notice something astonishing. Your joy has returned, but not the old one. Not the joy that depended on stimulation, surprise, or emotional fireworks. Not the joy that rose and fell with your circumstances. This joy is different. This joy is quiet. This joy is pure. This joy is stable. This joy is impossible to steal. It does not depend on music to stir you. It does not depend on people to complete you. It does not depend on excitement to wake you up. It does not depend on achievement to validate you. It comes from one place and one place only. God, His presence, His truth, His peace anchoring itself inside your spirit. And this is where the miracle becomes undeniable. This joy doesn't fade. It doesn't evaporate under pressure. It doesn't collapse when things go wrong. It doesn't need to be recharged because it's not fueled by anything external. It is rooted, it is living, it is sustained by heaven itself. You begin to notice that you no longer wake up searching for something to make you feel alive. You wake up already alive. You no longer chase people who never had the capacity to understand your heart. You're content whether they stay or go. You no longer feel the need to escape your life to find meaning. You carry meaning within you. This new joy feels like strength disguised as serenity. It feels like wisdom wrapped in peace. It feels like purpose humming beneath your skin, guiding your steps even when the path is unclear. It is the joy that comes from knowing who you are in God and who you no longer need to be for anyone else. And here's what shocks most chosen ones. This joy doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. It becomes the quiet center of your inner world, the compass of your decisions, the foundation of your self-worth. You enter a maturity where joy becomes who you are, not something you chase, not something you pray desperately to feel, not something you depend on others to give you. God Himself becomes your joy, and when He becomes your joy, nothing in the world can take it away. This is what the silence was preparing you for all along. The numbness, the isolation, the internal drought, the emotional stillness. None of it was punishment. It was preparation. It was God removing the fragile, unstable versions of joy you once clung to, so He could replace them with a joy strong enough to carry you through every season of your calling. And now, chosen one, as this deeper joy begins to awaken inside you, something far more powerful is about to unfold. Because the moment joy becomes your foundation, destiny begins to move in ways you are finally ready to receive. Chosen one, everything you've just walked through, the silence, the emptiness, the loss of interest, the unsettling neutrality, it wasn't a collapse. It was a calling, a summons from heaven pulling you out of the life you once fit into and preparing you for the life you were always meant to carry. If nothing makes you happy anymore, understand this with every fiber of your being. This is not the end of your joy. It is the rebirth of it. God has been reshaping you quietly, strategically, deliberately. Not in the places you can see, but in the places no one sees. He has been removing what was temporary, so He can give you what is eternal. He has been emptying your hands, so He can fill your spirit. He has been silencing the noise, so you can finally hear His voice without interference. What you thought was emotional decline was actually spiritual elevation. What you mistook for regression was the doorway to revelation. What you feared was abandonment was actually alignment. You were not losing joy. You were losing everything that was too small for your destiny. You were being stripped of counterfeits so you could receive the real. You were being pulled away from noise so you could step into clarity. You were being separated from the old version of yourself so the true version, the chosen version, could finally rise. Chosen one, you are not the same person who started this video. Something awakened while you were listening. Something opened. Something shifted. The dryness you felt was not death. It was God burning away everything that could not carry the weight of your calling. And now you stand on the edge of a new spiritual landscape, one built not on emotion but on truth, not on stimulation but on identity, not on temporary joy but on eternal purpose. God is giving you a peace that doesn't tremble, a strength that doesn't crack, a clarity that doesn't depend on circumstances. And when this transformation is complete, when the work He is doing inside you fully blossoms, you will look back at this strange, silent season and say these words with sacred understanding. Nothing made me happy because God was making me whole. Now, if this message ignited something inside you, if you felt the shift, the awakening, the confirmation, comment, "I am rising below." Declare it, seal it, let heaven see your agreement, and prepare yourself, because what comes next will not just change your life, it will reveal who you were always meant to become.